Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. It's Leadership Lunch Chat with Amy and Jen. We're so glad to see you all and to be here to talk to you. And Amy and I were talking about things that we felt like we should discuss today, what's on our minds and on our hearts. And our RBG, the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is certainly something that we think merits discussion and acknowledgement. And so, Amy, I don't know if you want to start on that subject, but I think we'll start there and see where it takes us.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Did you see the movie about her?
Well, there was a movie, and then there was Notorious RBG, the documentary. So I saw the documentary. I did not see the movie. And my kids, my daughters, some of them saw the movie, but I thought the documentary was incredible.
Right.
So
yeah,
definitely.
The movie was really powerful, I thought, as well. And I do and I was just listening to Brene Brown this morning talking about her. And I think what was really interesting as you learn about a person, whomever they are, but especially someone like her that broke so many boundaries, is where they think around the edges. And a lot of times that doesn't get appreciated real time because the thought process is so different than the majority. And one of the things Brene Brown was talking about was a quote from her of how important dissents are in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And not for the purpose of an argument, but the purpose of, in the future, this is a documentation of understanding, another perspective and probably where the future is going to go, where other people will start understanding that person's opinion and the basis and so forth, that it's not about being right. It's about change. And when people maybe aren't ready for change. And I think, her impact so early and being able to see things that other people couldn't see or put words to, and then have the guts to fight for it, even when you're being pushed down, is really important. But I think one of the most important things that I get from her is that it's not just about fighting for something you believe in. It's fighting with respect and gaining respect as you have a different opinion, and respecting other people's difference of opinions and how you can shape those together and come together. And I think in a world where we're so divisive right now, that kind of thought process is such an important thought process to remember, besides her impact for women and everything else, is how do we actually bring people together in a real way, in a factual way, without emotion, but with foresight into the future and not just the immediate moment.
Right. Well, and, I think that, RBG was known for her being sort of willing to speak out, not just for women. I think a lot of people sort of polarize her to just women's decisions. Women, men, huge landmark decisions for folks with people with disabilities. She had just this wide-ranging impact, huge. And there are a lot of T-shirts being made and that sort of things that there were after the Notorious RBG documentary, which I recommend everybody watch. A lot of shirts made, and one of them is "I Dissent," which is just the idea that you don't have to go along with the way it is. You don't have to go along with what everyone's saying. You can share your convictions, and you can do it without hate, and you can do it without disrespect. And I think that was one of the big messages that she had. I loved what a warrior she was. And somebody who the documentary really paints her as like first well-rounded. And I think sometimes Supreme Court justices, we picture 9 people sitting in robes, behind the big
Right.
auspicious, court, background, and we don't see them as human. And that the movie and the documentary both humanize the holy heck out of her. She was an ambitious young woman at a time when maybe women didn't go to law school. They didn't study law. They didn't go before the Supreme Court necessarily. They didn't. They couldn't use credit, get a credit card. They couldn't take out bank loans. She, defied all that stuff and then got busy changing it. There's a notorious story. One of the notorious stories about her is how her husband became very ill. Martin became super ill while they were going to law school at Harvard. And she attended his classes and took notes and brought them back in addition to her own classwork.
Right.
And we had a young baby, which is a classic, have it all, do it all kind of, powerful woman stuff. I want a big job and I want a family. And so that means I'm going to have to be an animal, a warrior. And she was. And there in the documentary, they show her at like 80 something. I don't know how old she is in it, but in her 80s, and she's working out with a trainer. And she got the other justices to start. Some of the others started working out because RBG was working out. And they show her planking. And I'm serious. It's awesome. I mean, after that, I started planking. We added planking to our holiday exercise streak. I had plank now and then, but I mean, she was planking multiple times a week. She's 80 something. I'm like, I should probably be planking if RBG does. So she inspired that. I still plank several times a week now. And anyway, she was a warrior in that respect, like fighting for her health. She'd already had pancreatic cancer when she was in this documentary working out. And then she fought, cancer like a warrior, and fought for her job and fought for her convictions all the way to the end. And to die on Rosh Hashanah, as I understand, is a very auspicious, wonderful honor for her. And, to be such an important holy day. And her impact on us, our country, is immense. And I'm sad that she wasn't able to stay through the election, but I'm also, maybe she's gone, into the universal energy to impact things in different ways. And she certainly impacted me. So, when I grow up, I want to be a warrior half as powerful as RBG.
Yeah. And one thing I want to maybe reflect on, and it's been something this year that I've really become more aware of, is when someone is successful, they use the word powerful. And when and when it happens with women, a lot of times it takes away from the humanness of a person. And definitely, in the movie that I saw talked about, the struggle she had with her daughter and being a mother and having this career. And sometimes I think we look at careers as someone's doing it to just achieve, versus they're doing it for them out of a passion and purpose for themselves. And then it gets converted into that they're not human and they're powerful because they've achieved success. But the success wasn't the goal. It was the purpose and the passion of their own belief system that they wanted to bring to the world.
Yes.
And so it's also why it's important to see her plank, right? Like, she's a human that wants to stay in shape and healthy.
Exactly.
About the fact that she's a Supreme Court justice, and people get surprised. It's like, oh, she planks? And it's like, yes, she's a human being with a heart. And, just like anyone else gets disappointed in human relationships, has failings of their own as a human being. And I think when we get to this discussion of understanding all sides, and what she represented as all sides, like even though she did a lot for women, it was about equality, right? It wasn't just about women.
Right.
I mean, her first case was a man. So, I just get it's just this vantage point or viewpoint of successful people that they're not human without human emotion. And I think it's important when we hear anyone or we see someone else's success, we understand that they have hardships, that they have things that they've had to go through in their own life. But truly, I believe truly successful people, it wasn't for anybody else. It was passion and purpose that just was in their belly. And it's what they believed in. And to try when we are working on opposite sides of an argument and we hear someone passionate that's doing it in an educated way and so forth, like, remember that each person is human. It's not like, oh, well, they're successful, they don't really understand what I'm going through or my perspective or whatever. No, they're trying. They read the bad comments when the bad comments are written, and they know people don't like. She knew people didn't like her for her opinions as well, but that didn't change the fact that she was doing it out of passion and purpose, and she was still a human being.
Yes. Well, and I'm going to transition just quickly to something I did this week that was powerful for me, a powerful learning experience. Tuesday of this week, I hosted for the CPA FMA a panel on racial diversity, and it was like getting real about the lack of racial diversity, in particular the lack of Black and African American professionals in our profession. And I had 3 panelists come and share, and it goes to this point of human and humanizing. All 3 of my panelists were incredibly vulnerable and open and sort of straight, without blame, about their first experience with racism, at what age it happened and how they discovered that the color of their skin was going to elicit hate or disrespect or ugliness or cause fear for them. We were virtual or remote, so you can't. I'm going to tell you that during those stories you could hear a pin drop. Now that's a dumb thing to say because when you're remote you can't hear anything. The audience isn't noisy anyway. But I'm telling you, the profound impact that their stories had as human beings. First, kids growing up. Here's when I first experienced this racism against myself, and then here's how I've experienced it in my job, and here's how I witness it. It was incredibly powerful. The weakness and the sadness that they felt in the moment, the fear, all of that. It made all of us as leaders lean in and think, what can we do to make sure that's not happening in our firms? Mm-hmm. What can we do? And I just thought it was so brave and so generous of them, because they could have come onto the call and been blameful, first of all, because, they could make the people that have made them feel that way wrong. But they didn't. And they also could have come and been inauthentic and kept all that stuff inside and been instead like, let me tell you, firm leaders, here are some strategies we think you should take. And we talked about solutions, believe me. And we talked about, we talked about like what I'll call corporate challenges and programs and solutions. So we got there, but they didn't start there. And they could have. I gave them an open question, tell your story, tell us about your journey, how you got to the profession. They could easily have started with, here's how I picked my major. It was awesome. It was so powerful. So I guess sometimes to me, power is, is palms up. Right. Power is my neck is out. So, I think that's actually the most powerful power is when you take those risks. And sometimes that's dissenting.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes dissenting is, sitting in a room full of people, and I've done this a lot in my lifetime, certainly, and I've done it a lot with other consultants. I belong to consultants groups, and we'll be sitting there and everybody's saying something, and I'm thinking, I don't agree. And I want to be quiet. In
Right.
all honesty, I want to be quiet. My inner
Right.
dialogue's like, don't go there.
Right.
Don't
And
do
you know
it.
you'll be shut down. And
But and I also I don't want them to think, wow, she's just coming from left field.
Right.
I want to be considered one of the guys, or one of the girls, or whatever, however you want to look at that. And I just hate it when I feel that way. But I speak up.
I know. I'm like, it's coming.
Whatever.
The train's coming. I'm trying to stop it, but it's not going to stop.
So I think hard about it. But how am I going to say this in a way that doesn't feel like a
right?
Exactly. Or like the rantings of a lunatic,
Right. Yeah.
Folks, but and everybody knows I'll do it. You know what I mean? I can't help it, and I feel just so convicted that I can't sit inauthentically.
Right.
That's what I'm convicted to, is not faking it with people.
Right.
So if I don't agree, I'm going to have to say it.
I mean, this is a really small example, but I was thinking about it after. And I was like, it's just those little things where someone realizes you're the only person in the room and it's uncomfortable for you. So I was at a consulting job this week, and we were at dinner, and I'm the only woman at dinner, which is,
normal.
Right. But, there's always that moment, where you're like, wow, I'm the only woman sitting here, where you're just like, okay, pause. That's fine. I know how to handle this. But after, we started talking for a while, the conversation started turning to sports. And this is a typical thing, that happens that I've been used to in my career. And I just know when to kind of step out of the conversation because I really don't have much to offer. Someone will, they're talking about their teams and whatever. And I know they're really passionate about it. So I'm fine, whatever.
Yes.
But one of the men stopped the conversation and said, Amy, do you watch sports? And I'm like, well, I go for the food. Like, I'm like, that's really, I look forward to eating when I go, but like, that's really about it. And he very lightly turned the conversation to something else. And it was such a, I don't know that I've ever had anyone do that before. And it's just a small thing. But when we talk about being inclusive, those kinds of conversations we don't realize are so focused and can be exclusive to people that aren't. So when we talk about diversity and all those things, like the types of conversations that come up, it is important to think about, does this include everybody, and trying to bring them into the fold of the conversation. And if it doesn't, like, he didn't tell everyone stop talking about it. Mm-mm. He just, in his head, started thinking about, how do I shift this conversation in a way that no one really notices? I watched it happen, and I was like, that's really impressive. I don't know that I can think of a time that's happened before. So.
Well, and it's generous.
Yes.
It's not just, it's generous, because it's sort of he has to then be like, sitting there mentally, plotting to shift it, and
without being obvious.
And it's easier for him to just go along too, so he has to do a little work to make it happen, and that's generous. I love that. And I've been having these conversations to educate myself about what people of color experienced in their lives and in our profession, really, and how I can be a better ally. And I've been having at least one or two of those conversations, I'd say I'm having about 4 a month, about one a week, roughly. Mm-hmm. And I've never had them before, and I've talked about this to the group in the past. So I'm getting like a major education in 2020 here. And one of the really profound things that was said to me by an African American woman who said, hey, when conversations, let's just take a group of women for a second. Mm-hmm. When they turn to latest hairstyles, if I'm the only Black person then that conversation excludes me. If they're talking about like how much they love getting being in the sun at the beach and getting tan, I don't tan. If they're talking about television that they've been watching, a lot of television is like not programmed for me. I don't watch those shows, and the shows I watch, maybe you don't watch. And maybe there's more crossover there, but she was like, we just have to pay attention to that.
Right.
That those things are exclusive. And I feel a little bit left to try to figure out, where do I go now with this so I can get back in here?
Yeah.
And, so you're sitting there thinking sports, okay, this is my mental timeout to take a mental walk around.
And this could go on the whole night, and I'm prepared myself for that. Yeah.
But I mean, the person excluded has to sort of be like, okay, but this guy that changed the subject, I mean, that's what I'm now looking to do because of what this woman said. I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to pay attention to what subjects I introduce. When it's my turn to introduce a subject, I'm going to look at my group and think, wait a minute, or maybe say, hey, what are we going to talk about at dinner? We could talk about this, that, or the other thing. Let's take a vote, or something. Yeah. To just recognize simple conversation can be uncool.
And you don't realize how calloused you are to it, like until something like that, until he actually shifted it without me realizing he shifted it. And then later that night, I was like, that was cool. Like, that was really cool what he did. And the way he did it was then shift the conversation. It's like, Amy, I know you play bass guitar. Do you know she plays bass guitar? And then we all started talking about music but it was like he knew something about me and brought that in, which to me was just this tiny little lesson about and I was okay only because I've been used to being okay. But when he did that, I was like, I guess I shouldn't be. Like, what he did was right.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool.
And I mean, that's the definition right there. Yeah. If we look it up in the dictionary of inclusion.
Right. Exactly.
What he did. He was being inclusive. And I think if you're trying to have a more inclusive culture, and I think we all have to have a more inclusive culture if we want to be competitive and sustain our businesses, and a more inclusive culture at home, we have to start paying attention to little things.
The tiny things.
It's the littlest thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is such a small little lesson, but it was right. It was the right thing to do.
I agree. I love it. I love the example. Yeah. Well, listen, I don't know how that happened, but we just tore up 20 minutes again. So we're at time. That's crazy. I had we had a little list between us that we didn't get to. So we'll look at next week. And by the way, please, everybody, add to our list. We love the comments. We love the sharing. We love the the ideas for what you're facing that we could talk about. So please keep them coming, and we'll see you all next Friday. See you, Amy.
Have a great weekend.
You too.